Hello everybody, I thought I'd spend a few minutes this morning talking about the Chapter 2 Webassign homework, problem number 7, which I've gotten a lot of questions on, so I wanted to spend a little bit of going over how some of these answers might be found. So the question details are this: in a recent issue of the IEEE Spectrum, which is a magazine, 84 engineering conferences were announced. 4 lasted 2 days, 36 lasted 3 days, 18 lasted 4 days, 19 lasted 5 days, 4 lasted 6 days, 1 lasted 7 days. 1 lasted 8 days, 1 lasted 9 days, and so on. Let X equal the length of the engineering conference. And the first task that they have you work out is the distribution table, the frequency, relative frequency, and cumulative frequency tables. And for the most part, I think based on our discussion in the class, we haven't had too much trouble with that part. But where we have had some trouble is in calculating other things, such as quartiles or percentiles, or perhaps the mean and the median and the mode. So I'm going to try and go over some of those ideas with you here from my example. Alright, so I got this problem right here. And part B says, well, okay, find the median and the first quartile or the third quartile. So I'll show you what I did on my worksheet here for Excel. And I worked this out using Microsoft Excel, and if this will let me do it, I can move my little, I can open up my text box here and do some sort with you. Okay, here we go. Okay, so, well, you see right here that I've worked out my own relative frequency table, and that was found by just taking the frequency, dividing it by the total number of days. X, of course, is the number of days of each conference. The frequency with which that number of days occurred is important right here. And, of course, the relative frequency. And I'll explain these two categories here in a bit. The first thing, of course, is to figure out, well, what is the median? What is the median? Well, how do we find it? Well, the way we're going to find it is we want to figure out, well, how, what data point would fall within the median's category. Now, we're going to call X as our category, although it's our variable. The X is our category that we're working on. Of course, the frequency is the one that we're interested in. So when we talk about the median, let me show you how I do this. I say that the median is going to be at the point where we take 0.5 times the total frequency, so 84, and that gives me, of course, 42. Well, where would data point number 42 lie? Well, data points 1 through 4 lie in the category that corresponds to X equals 2. Data points 5 through 40, that's the next 36 data points, would lie in the category where X equals 3. Well, that's 40, right? But this is 42. So the next 18, so that would be from 41 all the way up to 58, would lie in this category where X equals 4. So if we say 4 days, that's going to be our median. Similarly, we're going to say the same thing for categories. It might be helpful in this case if you wanted to start dealing with a cumulative frequency. So what we're going to do right here is that with our cumulative frequency, not the relative frequency, not the cumulative relative frequency, just the cumulative frequency, it actually provides us a count. Cumulative frequency, of course, is going to be 4, right? And then we start adding going down the column. So what's going to happen right here is that I'm going to take my number in column 1, I right here, and add that to my next number, right? And so if I add going down the list, and I just copy that formula all the way down, just adding one number to the other one above it, here we go. All of these numbers add up, right? So this is the category where the frequency was 1 through 4, right? This is category number 2, so if this goes through 1 through 4, then the next category, nope, I don't want 4 January. X is, well, I'm sorry, M. The frequency is 1 to 4. How about 1 to 4? There we go. The next category is going to go 6 to 40, right? The next category is going to go 50 to 58. So you see what's happening right here is that each of these categories right here, 59 to 77, right? And so on down the list, tell me where my X category is at. Get it? So right here, if I want to find quartile 1, what am I going to do? Well, multiply 0.25 equals 0.25 times 84, our total frequency. That's 21. Well, conference number 21 is in the category from 6 to 40, and that corresponds to X equals 3 days. So we put 3 days here for quartile 1. And I'll leave you with quartile 2, but let's say in my example I was asked for the 55th percentile. Well, as before, I'm going to multiply my percentile, so 0.55 times 84, that gives me 46.2. Well, 46.2 falls in the category from 41 to 58 days, and that's 4, right? So that's 4 days. 4 days is the one that falls within my category. So these are my answers right here. I'm going to leave you to do these other ones. I'm not going to do all of them, but I thought it would be helpful for you to see at least a couple of how am I figuring out my percentile there. Okay, let's go down here. I worked out some numbers for my mean and standard deviation. I'm going to have to show you these ones again right here. So let me redo them. If you're going to find your mean, right, what you're going to do is the following. You're going to take the frequency times the midpoint. Now, in the handout paper that I sent you in the email about my Fizzy Cola drink, right, the way I said it was that you take the frequency times the class midpoint, and you take the sum of those frequency times the class midpoints, and the mean is going to be that sum of the frequency times the midpoints divided by n, which is the total frequency. So when I found my mean, what I found was by taking my sum of 5760 divided by, in this case, 50. Right, and that gave me that. So what am I going to do right here? Well, what I did was I took the product, and I'll redo this for you. What I did was I took the product. I took the product of my frequency times my midpoint. Now, my class midpoint is not a midpoint in this case. It's just the actual value of the class. So if we take 2 times f, so in this case I took equals frequency times x, right? That gave me my value. Well, if I add up all of these frequency times midpoint, quote unquote, midpoint values, I get 331. So to get my mean, the way I'm going to do it, I'm going to get my mean by saying it's equal to that sum of frequency times the midpoints divided by the total frequency. And in this case, that's 84. So my mean is actually 3.94 days if I round that to the nearest hundredth. Right? So that's how I'm getting my mean. Now, as far as my standard deviation, well, the standard deviation is going to be found by taking a different formula. We have to include another column here for us to do this. So in this one, we take the frequency times the square of the midpoint. So in this case, what I'm actually taking is the frequency in column B times the square of the midpoint. And in this case, that's just x. And multiplying those two. Okay, and that gives me my values. And I did that all the way down the line, and as I did before, I added up all of those terms, right? So this is a sum of all of those values that I got from frequency times midpoint squared. Okay, so what does that do for me? Well, my formula right here for frequency goes like this, and this is a weird one to look at, so let me bring it on over here. Here's my formula. Okay, it says to find the standard deviation, take n, which is your total frequency, times the sum of all your FM squared. So this category right here, F10, right, I'm taking that, minus the square of what you get right here. So it's the square of that 331. And then we're going to divide that all by 84 times 84 minus 1, and then take the square root of the whole shooting match. So here, I'm going to type in the formula right here so that you see it. It's going to be equal to, if I follow this formula, the square root, and be careful with the way that you put in these formulas. I'm going to start with another inner parentheses right here, and my inner parentheses is going to be n, which is that value, 84, times the number that I get from my sum of my FM squareds. So times 1,441. That's my square. And then I'm going to subtract from that the square of 331. So 331 squared. Now, I want to be careful right here because I close off my parentheses. That's this entire numerator. And now I'm going to divide it. I'm going to divide that by the value of B, which is 84. Now I'm going to put this in parentheses. 84 times that value, 84 minus 1. Okay, and now I'm going to get one more parenthesis here to close off my square root. You saw that flash really quickly right there when I did that. And there it is. This is my standard deviation. Okay. Now, the last thing they also ask here is the mode, right? Mode. What's the mode? Mode is the most populated category, right? So we look at this, and well, which ones occur most frequently? Well, clearly, 3 days is the mode, right? Because it occurs most frequently. Sometimes we call it a modal class when it comes in a table like this. Okay, anyways, that was my attempt at showing you some of this thing. You guys are going to have different percentiles and a couple of little different numbers in here, but hopefully that will help you get your values as well. Good luck.